Hello everyone. I have a special unboxing today and it's for a VITA game. However, I got this box, which is a Japanese limited edition called a treasure box, not because I really need another copy of the game. I don't. I already have the games on PS4 and, importantly, the original releases on PlayStation Vita. Now, Toukiden, in case you're not familiar with it, is a sort of Monster Hunter type game. That's how it was originally concepted and designed. And that's really what it is, a very enjoyable monster hunting game, mission-based, straightforward Japanese JRPG hunting game. It was designed by the well-known Omega Force, and I don't need to tell you what other really important big franchise they're known for. And I think you will see in the few short clips I've prepared for you from Toukiden that visually it does remind me quite a bit of the Dynasty Warriors style. So it was originally released in 2013 in Japan for the PlayStation Portable, PSP, and the just released Vita. Koei Tecmo showed the game in 2013 at E3, and in 2014 a localized version came to North America, exclusively on the Vita. Now, my notes tell me that Koei Tecmo stated that the decision to create Toukiden for the Vita and PSP was due to Capcom releasing their Monster Hunter titles on the Nintendo 3DS. They believed that plenty of people using Sony consoles were keen for a hunting game on those systems. Not an unreasonable expectation, and with the PSP having a pretty good install base, similar in numbers to the 3DS, I would think they thought they might have a winner on their hands. But the PSP was aging by then, and the Vita, as we all know, never reached an install base that even came remotely close to what the PSP had and the 3DS. And therein possibly lies the reason that Toukiden is simply not that well known. So the game was developed as a collaboration between Sony and Koei Tecmo, and Team Ninja was also involved to some degree. So the credentials for the game in terms of the people working on it is pretty high. Character designs and illustrations were by Hidari. He's of course well known for his work on the Atelier Dusk trilogy, which is still my favorite trilogy. And the music is composed by Hideki Sakamoto, who is known, among other games, for the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game music. Also Attack of the Friday Monsters, A Tokyo Tale, one of my big favourites of the digital games on the 3DS. And he's also worked on Super Smash Bros. So I never got the original Toukiden game on the Vita because an updated copy, Kiwami, was released fairly soon after the original release. So I waited for that to come out and then got it. So that came out in 2014 in Japan and 2015 in the West. In 2015, they also announced that there would be a PS4 version for the West, with support for multiplayer cross-play and also cross-save between the PS4 and Vita platforms. So they covered that whole aspect really well, because with the Vita not having the huge install base, they really needed the PS4 in there as well, and obviously hoped that those two platforms would work together well. Kiwami, by the way, has a very high rating on Metacritic for the Vita version in particular, the PS4 version slightly lower. I would think that might be due to the fact that they had to work with the original graphics, which they upscaled. It looks pretty nice on the PS4, but if you look closely you can see that it was originally a lower resolution. And here's an interesting piece of trivia. Toukiden Kiwami was one of the launch games for the PS4 in China in 2015. So if you are wondering about getting a copy and want to know about the differences between Toukiden and Kiwami, you might think Kiwami's only a small update. No, Kiwami was a big overhaul. They added heaps more content. They almost doubled the size of the game. It has twice the number of demons, 2 new characters, extended story, and new equipment. If you're going for a version and you can get the Kiwami one, I think that would be the top choice. So what about this box? Why did I get it? Well, the treasure boxes, especially from Koei Tecmo, are actually usually very nice. Even so, I had to hunt it down second-hand via eBay, but I found a very good Japanese seller. There is one reason above all that I wanted this particular box, and I will show you why in this clip from the opening scene animation for Toukiden. So I hope you noticed that incredibly cute little foxy character, and that is Tenko. Now, a Tenko is a type of Japanese divine beast, a kitsune, a fox spirit, who has aged 1,000 years, becomes a Tenko, a 9-tailed fox spirit. Well, I only noticed 2 tails on this one. It is viewed as a benign guardian entity and a helpful servant for rice gods. So the Tenko serves as a mascot character, and in the original game Tenko has a small role to play with regard to mitama, which are sort of gems you slot into your equipment, your weapons, to upgrade them. In the second game, Toukiden 2, there are, I think, several Tenko, and they take on a slightly more important role there. Shall we have a look and find the Tenko in the box? So here's the Japanese version of the game. The soundtrack, now this is a nice surprise. I will try and take a couple of tracks off and use them for, highlight music. And I think this is an art book. I hope it is. This edition is, of course, now quite a few years old. They still did things the old-fashioned way back then. I like it. So there we are. You have the female character. I tend to play as a female, and little Tenko sitting by her feet. Here's the ensemble. So the book appears to be mainly illustrations. And you can see the typical style that I associate with Dynasty Warriors as well. Showcasing the different weapons. And I will show you those in another clip. There are guns as well, and I believe firearms were added in Kiwami. He's the boss who runs the village there of the group of demon slayers. Here is the character creation screen, and I'm just very quickly showing you this because at the time the game came out in 2013, this was quite something, especially for a handheld game on the Vita, to have this level of customization. I remember people going nuts over it, streaming online. They had a great time exploring all the options. So I'm just quickly establishing my female character, and then we'll have a look at the various weapons. I want to show you that. And there we are, the sword. And you see there's always a really good animation for every weapon type. The knives. A very, very big spear. Gauntlets, I don't really use those. Neither do I use chain and sickle. I have a hopeless aim, so I very, very rarely pick a ranged weapon. A club, just occasionally I like to use it to wallop something with. Here's one of my favourite weapons, the naginata. So versatile and quite responsive. And the rifle, I mentioned before, firearms were introduced in Kiwami. And for this little playthrough, I decided to pick something I haven't used before, and that's the knives. And this is now the introduction to you being plunged as the protagonist into a sort of test. Let's just enjoy the animated sequence first. What a pickup line, eh? No, those two know each other well, of course. And the woman on the left is, of course, Oka. And here are some monsters. This is what you'll be facing in the game. So Oka is heading back to the village because of my arrival. Yes, a new recruit. And now it is of course quite a number of years now since I played Toukiden on the Vita. It would be nearly 7 years, I guess. I'm a bit hazy now on all the characters, etc. Sake there. That looks really nice. You would need that after a day of demon hunting. And here is our little star, Tenko. There's only one word: adorable. Now this looks really interesting. I wish I could decipher that, all the connections and relationships. And that's the end page. I am impressed. It is a beautiful art book. I really like it. And now, the star of this treasure box. He's been captured inside this plastic container for far too long. I will set Tenko free now, and he will join all the other figures and plushies on our sofa and chair. He's got a cute little pouch there. You see, I hadn't actually inspected the box before. It's been sitting in our lounge for quite some time. I just haven't had the time to get round to, doing it. And because I knew I wanted to unbox it here with you guys, I did not have a look inside, because that spoils the surprise. So this is my first proper look at Tenko. He's wearing a little cap, and I like the stitching detail, like on the eyes. You don't often find that level of detail anymore these days on plushies and the like. He's sitting very prim and proper with his front legs between his hind legs. The ears are really cute. Now, the twin tails are fixed. You can't move those. But it's incredibly soft, fluffy, long-haired material. I will take a peek inside that little bag he's carrying. No, the bag is purely for decoration. You can't pull anything out. So that's it. Welcome, Tenko. So that's the story of how I got Tenko and why I bought the complete treasure box, because as far as I'm aware, that is the only way you can get your very own Tenko. I'm such a fan of Toukiden. I personally never got into Monster Hunter. I will make another attempt. I've got one of the newer games on the PS4. I know it's a good game. I've just never got into it. It's and I know it's a huge time sink. And Toukiden is really easy to get into. You can get into it quickly and level up and defeat various huge monsters. It's pretty straightforward, really, and very well suited for quick campaigns. You can play online multiplayer with up to 4 people in a party. And I quickly tried to check if the online play is still available, because, as you know, some servers, especially for VITA games, have been shut down, like Freedom Wars and Soul Sacrifice. But Toukiden, because it's also on the PlayStation 4, and of course the PlayStation 4 has a huge install base, as far as I can tell, has escaped the dreadful fate of server closure so far, at least for Toukiden 2. As far as I can tell, those servers are definitely still open. I'm not 100% certain on Kiwami, on the first game. So how do you do a multiplayer? Well, there are sort of portal stones in the game, and you get access to those very, very early in the game. You can touch those and then go to a lobby and usual thing. By the way, in case you're wondering about my t-shirt, yes, it's a new one. And it's called Tea Time. And it's a beautiful drawing Ray did some time ago for the channel. And Ray, as you may know, does all the channel artwork every week. And this is a particular favourite of mine, and I thought, being very, very Japanese, it suited the occasion today. So that's tea time. What's the story behind Toukiden, the setting? It uses a lot of traditional Japanese folklore, culture and mythology. If you love those things, I would say you're likely to like this game too. I was instantly immersed in it and loved it straight away. So 8 years before the main story of the game, time and the heavens distorted and the underworld emerged into the land of man. A great demon rose from its gap and plunged the land into an age of calamity. The slayers fought tooth and nail and its army for seven grueling days. They barely succeeded in their mission to save humanity. The great conflict was later called the Awakening, and the slayers who fought in it were appointed to help restore the land's political realm. The protagonist is a part of the new wave of slayers who rise to deal with the land's never-ending demonic forces. They reside at Utakata village, one of the last lines of defense in the war between humans and humanity. And I'll just quickly show you the village and how you, as the new recruit, arrive there. And here is the village. This is where I'll be staying for the next quite long while. Utakata village. So I'm getting the introductory treatment here, and it's always nice to know where home is. The house is basic, but it's comfortable. Okay. So the gameplay revolves around hunting and killing huge monsters. And the way that's done is like in many other monster hunting games. You can't just flail away at the monster. Not like in the opening sequence, which I'll just show you very quickly here, where you have to show whether you've got the mettle to become a demon hunter, a demon slayer. It's right at the beginning of the game where you haven't even had a tutorial yet, so you just hack away at the monster to show you've got the determination. And this is a very interesting sequence. I think this is the gods, possibly, watching from above. Perchance to dream. Now this is a very interesting line, of course. They've picked a quote from Shakespeare, from HAMLET. So this is one of those literary touches that I enjoy seeing in games. This is from To Be or Not to Be, the soliloquy by HAMLET, and it goes, to die, to sleep perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub, for in that sleep of death what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. And here I go, I'm thrust straight into a battle with an overwhelming type of ogre, and all I can do is really hack and slash away and just not give up. You can't lose this fight. I'm using the Eye of Truth here to see which parts I can go for. And the controls helpfully pop up on screen, so you can start familiarizing yourself with the pretty straightforward control system. Later on you get more complex combos that you can execute, so it's half between an RPG and a fighting game. And Eye of Truth again. Now that tail is very, very tempting to strike if I can get at it. But a foot will do as well. And I found some footage of me with the sword, and you can see straight away I'm just a lot better with that. And I managed to strike it just right to bring it down in no time and get its essence. And that was it. The test is over. They obviously have great hopes for me. I just hope that we'll be satisfied. Fortunately, I can change weapon type very easily, so I'm not stuck with those knives. And here we are at the base. The boss is Yamato. And here you'll be introduced to, the stuff you need to know, admin, the mission-based structure of the exploration. But in the real fights, you need to be a bit strategic and attack the weak spots of each monster and slowly chip away at them that way. And those fights can take quite a long time. You get something called the Eye of Truth skill, which helps you in determining which parts you can actually see them, which parts you need to attack, and is also a useful skill for other things like treasure hunting. Oh, I do love treasure hunting. Right, Tenko? The different areas you work your way through in Toukiden are all themed according to Japanese history and mythology, and that's one of the aspects I really like about the game. They really put some thought and care into this. So the first area you start out in as a demon slayer is called Grace, or Miyabi in Japanese, and is a Heian period inspired with gloomy sunset lighting. Then you get a spiritual mountain landscape called Bu, and a volcanic area that symbolizes the Warring States period. Then an area called Peace, or An, which is an Edo period style castle area, and a wintry landscape called Ran, inspired by the end of the Tokugawa shogunate. And the very last area is called Ko, and is desert plains visually based on ancient Japan. So there's variety there, and it's all thematic. While the backgrounds are obviously not that good in visual terms, being originally designed for a handheld, they are still very pleasant and interesting. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the village I just showed you, I instantly liked it. I thought, yeah, I want to walk through here. I want to find out what the shops are and what the people are doing here. I found it appealing. So, was Toukiden successful? It was reasonably successful, but apparently not successful enough for Koei Tecmo to carry on the franchise, which is a bit of a shame. Obviously, as a fan, I would love to see another Toukiden, maybe designed on a newer engine, maybe for current gen consoles, would be great. But I'm not sure the sales were quite enough to convince them to carry on. There's an article here by well-known VITA Islander Kresnik258. He runs a blog on WordPress, and he put together some of the sales figures to look at the overall picture. And looking at monster hunting games, he writes, Monster Hunter was the PSP's biggest selling game in Japan by a country mile, so when Capcom decided to whisk it off to the 3DS, other publishers stepped in to fill the gap. While the biggest seller was the futuristic God Eater 2, undoubtedly the most successful was Koei Tecmo's Toukiden, which focused on traditional Japanese mythology and folklore. The publisher announced that its worldwide sales had topped 550,000 copies, of which at least 380,000 were on Vita. Now that is an astonishing number, and it certainly can only be explained by high sales in Japan. So it was successful enough to spawn an expanded re-release and a sequel, Toukiden 2, within 3 years. So yes, checking my own figures, Toukiden was the top-selling PlayStation Vita game in Japan for 2013. It was also the second most purchased digital Vita game on the US PlayStation Store in February 2014, which was the month of first release in the West. So the sequel, Toukiden 2, was released in 2016 in Japan on PlayStation 3, 4 and Vita, and in Europe and North America in March 2017. So that's the sequel. And I haven't played much of 2. I've mainly played the Kiwami. But I believe it's essentially the same game, but everything slightly changed, improved, updated, etc. The village in Toukiden 2 looks very, very similar to the one in the first game. The graphics too, I don't see much of a difference, slightly fuzzy looking, but pleasant overall. I think the difficulty is also a bit higher from what I hear, so if you're after a good challenge, Toukiden 2 might be for you. So the background for Toukiden 2 is players will assume the mantle of a mysterious slayer who has awakened after a 10-year slumber to a world shrouded in darkness. They don't specify whether this player has amnesia, I wonder. Players' battle skills and strategic acumen will be put to the ultimate test as they strive to save humankind in a vast and dangerous land known as the Otherworld, which is a landscape divided into 6 distinct ages, which each represent an era of Japanese history. So we've looked at that already, so they've reused that, and I think it's a great way of doing it. So in Toukiden 2, players can raise multiple Tenko and give them names. If they are well cared for, they will follow you around and occasionally find items for you. Look after your Tenko. Now, while it is entirely possible and doable to play Toukiden solo, and I know many people have done it, and I've done it, mainly in Kiwami, Toukiden 2 might be a bit tougher, I reckon. It is obviously designed for multiplayer for parties up to 4. I remember when it first came out, there were quite a few channels covering it, showing live multiplayer, and it looked like a lot of fun. So I had a quick look, and I see that there is a Discord. The title is just Toukiden. So if you look on Discord for a channel called Toukiden, you will find that there are people there. Yes, and there should be opportunity for finding others to play with. So that's Toukiden today. I hope that I can find the time to cover the games in a bit more detail in the future. In the meantime, I need to get Tenko settled in, maybe start having a crack at Toukiden 2 and start raising some little Tenkos. That would be nice. Here's the back of the box with the details. I'm very pleased with this treasure box. I think Koei Tecmo did a great job on it. I'm absolutely thrilled to have Tenko finally. It makes me want to go back to the games. That's to the credit of the games, that they could inspire me after all these years to go and find a treasure box and get Tenko. I don't think Toukiden should be forgotten. I really would love it if some more people picked it up. Copies should not be difficult to find. There are always sales on PlayStation where you can get it really cheaply, digitally. But even physical copies, at least on the PS4, are, I think, not difficult to find and not expensive. VITA, I'm not so sure about. They used to be plentiful. They were everywhere, and you could pick them up for a very good price, but I think that's come to an end, and stocks are probably lower now, so might be a bit more work involved finding a VITA copy. But whichever way, digital or physical, it should not be impossible to get hold of it and give it a whirl. If you love Japanese settings, Japanese oni, monster lore, folklore, historical settings, all this stuff which I'm very much into, as you've probably gathered, this is a great series of games to immerse yourself a bit in Japanese folklore and mythology and enjoy the company of a Tenko. Thank you very much for your company today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please keep well. I'm Food for Dogs. Bye-bye.
その夜、世界は暗闇に閉ざされた。
来たぞ、左舷。撃て撃て。この化け物が。
戦域にいるすべての者の符に通達する。これよりこの地に第一次防衛線を築く。港に侵攻するすべての敵を排除し、鬼の存在は世に知れた。もはや我らが身を隠す理由はない。人目を気にせず鬼を撃て。
了解。
And here you are, the mysterious slayer, awakened after a 10-year slumber into the wastelands of what was Yokohama. And instead of that monster test we had in Kiwami, this is your introductory battle scene. Interestingly enough, there is no real tutorial for the controls. Okay, they're displayed in the bottom right of the screen, but anything else will have to wait.
ガイドに多数のガキを確認。殲滅し、進路を確保せよ。鬼の死骸は正気の苗床になる。捨ておくな。鬼払いで片付けろ。
You're certainly getting instructions. And this is, of course, a supremely important ritual in both Toukiden games. And you can see I chose the Naginata for Toukiden 2. I certainly feel very comfortable with that. A beautiful weapon and just right for mowing down several of these smaller monsters. Okay, and here we've got a bit of a bigger, bad and rather ugly boy who seems to spew some kind of poison. Looks a bit like a spider, really, doesn't it? A horned spider creature. So you can experiment with your various skills. Steel health is certainly a very useful one. That yellow bile, oh dear. Okay, let's finish him off, I hope. Okay, we have to go to the elephant's trunk. Brute beast. Well, that sounds promising. You can speed up in Toukiden, but the speed is incredible, and stopping it is quite tricky. And this is what we already saw in Kiwami, destroying individual body parts to get at the essence. And this destroyer attack, that's from memory one of the really powerful ones you can pull off. And he's got this disappearing trick. Oh no, he's vanished. He probably thought, no, I can't win this one, I'll wait for another day. I come here when I please. He doesn't come across as pleasant and friendly as the commander in Kiwami, Yamato. This feels all a lot more tense up front, this game. Oh well. Well, we're certainly up against it. It all looks very bleak, I must say. Well, all slayers to the front. Will you join the Slayer Corps? That is the question.
Huh? なんだこいつ。おい博士、妙なやつが倒れてるぜ。
帰るぞ。そいつはお前がおぶってやれ。
俺かよ。たく、面倒ごとばっか押し付けやがって。
Thank you for watching. I hope you have fun with Toukiden too.